Protecting sensitive equipment from ingress is a thankless job. Few people think about the materials in the construction of, say, an outdoor outlet or an electric motor. But the people at Hammond, well, they never really stop thinking about it. They have a diverse selection of enclosures that are designed to be multi-purpose and adaptable to many applications. Of course, with their team of engineers, they can help customers or modify an enclosure or customize it so it is perfect fit for nearly any specific use case. Joining me to discuss this today is Tom Ballou, U.S. Sales and Marketing Manager for Hammond. Tom has over 18 years of experience in this industry with a lot of time that he has spent working on enclosures. Hammond is a global provider of transformers, racks, cabinets, and enclosures for the electrical and electronic industry, with 12 manufacturing facilities in Canada and including dedicated modification sites. How are we doing today, Tom? Thanks for being here today.
Very well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's fantastic to have you, and thank you so much for taking time to be here today.
Oh, happy to.
Right off, I always like to talk about some of the challenges. So let's talk about some of the things that we think about when it comes to the language of things. What exactly does it mean to modify an enclosure?
Yeah, so modifying enclosure is simply, well, the most common way is just to cut a hole in it. So we like to joke in our presentations that our products are pretty much useless as they're sold. You need to modify them in some way. You need to cut a hole for some kind of connector or a switch or an LED or a screen or something. Our products don't really become anything until they are modified for a customer specific use. So that's really what it means, is taking one of our standard designs and just changing it slightly in some way so that it's perfect for the customer application.
Now, when you say that, Tom, I'm assuming that you do that in your 12 modification centers. Is that correct?
Yep. So we have 12 factories. Most of them are producing enclosures, and then we have one, actually two. We have one in Canada and one in the UK that are totally dedicated just to modifying enclosures. So a bunch of CNC machines running, all day long, cutting holes in boxes. Sounds simple, but when it comes to things for the electronics industry, things have to be really precise. So we have a process in place to make things extremely precise down to the thousandth of an inch for specific connectors, and especially when you're talking about making sure that water ingress isn't going to be a problem. So our enclosures, in many cases, are made to be watertight. It's important that after you modify those enclosures, whatever you put in those holes, so you're going to cut a hole out and put a connector in there. That hole has to be really precise so that the connector that goes into that hole also maintains water tightness. So it's really important that happen.
Okay, and that led me into my next question, which was going to be, what are some of the common modifications when we talk about that manufacturers and customers are looking for?
Yeah, the number one is holes, right? Enclosures are pretty much universally going to need some kind of hole cut into it for a cable entry or some kind of connector or switch or antenna or LED or it could be anything and everything.
Right.
So that's the number one thing. The other common one for us is some kind of printing, whether it's a logo or text to maybe label which connectors are going to go in which hole. We also do that. So we have a couple different ways of doing that. We can silk screen on the surface of an enclosure, but we can also use our UV printers, which can really, it is just a printer, and it puts ink directly onto the surface of the enclosure and it cures. And it's pretty cool because I would say in the past, where you had to have just a solid colors, and it had to be, you couldn't have gradients or you couldn't print a photo on the surface of the box. We can do photorealistic stuff now. So it's really high resolution, high quality printing, and really durable too. So Those are the two most common, and the technology's really progressed on both of those fronts in recent years.
What what makes it an advantage to have that done at Hammond as opposed to doing it yourself?
Mhm. Well, quality control is one. So when someone orders modified enclosures from Hammond, they don't have to worry about scrap, right? So when you're learning to do this yourself, it's pretty easy to drill a hole in one enclosure. A lot of our plastic enclosures are pretty, soft material, soft, relatively speaking, that you can drill a hole into easily. It's great for one, it's great for two. Once you start up to 10, it can be a pain in the neck. And once you're doing 25, 50, or 100, then you really don't want to do that in house anymore because you're going to be incurring costs. Um, Typically, it's more expensive to do in house, something that you've got to build fixtures for or automate that process in house. We have all the fixtures for every single one of our enclosures ready to go. So a lot of that setup cost is already baked into our factory, and we can do it cheaper. The other thing is scrap. So if you say need 25 enclosures, you're going to have to order maybe 30 enclosures just so that you know you have enough. Once you've messed up a couple, and then you get 25 good ones out of that. Whereas if you order 25 from us, we're just going to ship you 25 perfect boxes. Additionally, we have a pretty good process of quality control in place. So whenever a new order comes into us, there's a drawing approval that's done every time. So we take whatever information a customer gives us and redraw it in our own system so that just to verify that we've interpreted their requirements correctly. They sign off on that. And then we actually, in most cases, we will also machine one sample and overnight it to them so that they can actually fit their board in there and be certain that it's exactly what they want. So they can make any changes that they need to at that time so that when they get their order of 25 or 100 or 1,000 or however many, all of those are going to be perfect. The worst case would be, to have 100 almost perfect enclosures,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
which we really do try to prevent that. I would say, you know, probably over half the time at that phase when there's a sample that we ask the customer to review and approve, they would say that there's one minor thing that maybe they didn't think of, or it just didn't pan out compared to their design. They just want to change something, a hole maybe 5 thousandths of an inch bigger to allow for some play for a certain connector to help their board fit in better. So it's a really valuable step, we feel, that makes the end quality quite a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. And what kind of tools do you have available at your different facilities that you have that make this possible?
So it's 25 CNC milling machines that we have over two factories. One is in Canada, and that one serves North America, and then one in the UK, which services the European market. So that's the main tool. But the thing is like I said, we have all the fixturing and tooling necessary to machine our enclosures. So we specialize in one thing, and that is cutting holes and modifying Hammond enclosures. So a lot of the guesswork has already been done. By the time a customer, I could throw out a part number. They want a modified 1554 N2 GYCL, right? We have the fixtures to put that right in the machine and start cutting it right away. We don't need to really think about it too much because that's
Right.
all we do.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of the engineering back office work to know what will fit, where it will fit, know
Yes.
it's not possible to get that close in the corners and things
Yeah,
like that.
and
So
you bring up another good point that we know what we can do and we know what we cannot do, and we can kind of figure that stuff out for you right off the bat. So if you come in with a request, we haven't seen everything, but we've seen just about everything before. So we're happy to let you know and work with you on designing that enclosure.
absolutely. And now you mentioned that the customer is able to review and then approve any modifications before it goes into full production. So you send them a sample, and so that's part of your normal process. are there high minimums that you're required to order or things like that? What does that look like?
Typically, no. So the most common modifications, like we discussed, are holes, cutting out of some kind of hole or rectangular cutout, something like that, and printing on the surface of a box. If we're just doing those kinds of things, minimum order is usually 25 pieces. We can do other things. So one advantage that we have over competitors in the market is that we own all of our own tooling and we mold almost all of our enclosures ourselves in-house. So we have the ability to mold custom colors with lower minimums than you typically see. So where you might need to order 5,000 of something to get it in, you know, your own corporate color, your own special color, we could do that for something more like 500 pieces. So that makes it a pretty attractive thing for small to medium-sized companies that maybe have a product that isn't, you know, mass market. We're not gonna sell 1 million of this widget that we're making, but maybe we're gonna sell 500. It makes a lot of sense to then make it as custom as possible. It makes it look like a custom built enclosure for your particular product that is really just a slightly modified off the shelf enclosure. So um, we kind of fit into that middle space between, you know, prototyping and mass market.
Right? And if I go on your website, I'm a customer, I go to the website, I want to see what different thing, what kind of resources are there on the website to help me?
So our philosophy is to give it all away for free, right? We just want customers to be able to find everything they need about our enclosures. We're here. We have a customer service department that's ready to talk to them and help them through the process. But we give away PDFs and CAD and 3D models of all of our enclosures, just so that a customer can download it, put it into their design, and get going right away. We want to make it as easy as possible for someone to find out the information they need without having to hunt and get a headache and give up and look for someone else's enclosure.
Sure, because most of them are probably on spec. They don't even know if their customer is going to buy the cabinet yet and buy the product. So they need to know what's going to fit and need to know what it's going to look like before they even start their design. So that
Right.
makes a lot of sense.
Right. And that does differ from some others where you have to sign up for a mailing list and you need to give all of your information away. We we believe that by the time somebody's downloading that information, they may have already, like you mentioned, may have already, you know, selected that enclosure or been told to use that enclosure for some other reason. We just want to get that in their hands immediately so that they can get to work on selecting the cutouts and any modifications to the design that they want. And just we're built for speed in that way.
Right. Now, if I'm a customer and I come to you, what kind of things do I need to have? What kind of information do I need to provide you? Drawings or information about what there is when I come there to ask you, hey, I need this cabinet. What kind of stuff
Mhm.
do I need before I get a quote?
Well, ideally, they've downloaded our drawing off of the website and just modified it, and they can just send it right to us. Those are the best drawings available of our parts. That said, that's not always how it goes. We can accept pretty much anything. We can accept a pretty good text description uh, of what they need. Say if it's simple, hey, I have this enclosure and I need a 1/2 inch hole centered on the lid. Well, we don't need much information in order to do that. We can figure that out ourselves. And it goes back to our quality process. We're going to take anything that they give us and redraw it in our own system anyway. It's important that we do that because we want to interpret their requirements correctly. So ideally, they give us perfect information, and there's no ambiguity there, and we know what we're doing right away. But we're going to redraw it anyway, just as a double check. So I've had pencil drawings and scribbles and um, received a lot of stuff, especially from repeat customers who know what they're getting into with us. We're going
Right.
to redraw that, and we're going to make sure that it's exactly what they need before they ever see that product arrive on their door.
Okay. And now, if you're a new customer, is there can they order customized Hammond enclosures from like a local electrical distributor?
Yes. So we sell our products through authorized distributors, so that is the way they would do it. A lot of times customers will come to us directly, and we're happy to, work with them on the design and make sure that we've, specified exactly what they need, put a quote together through a local distributor, and they can order it through the distributor. But we do have a team here that's ready to help them through that process.
Right.
So a
That's
lot of
always
time.
it's good to have that support.
Yes, yeah, it's needed because we can't expect the local distributor to be an expert in everything Hammond. So we are there as a resource. We're happy to work with the customer and then pass that off to the distributor. Um, Works pretty well,
That's
but a lot of
fantastic.
times they come to us first and then work on that with the distributor later on.
Okay.
And
And
it's good too because they are likely buying all their other components from that distributor. So at
sure.
that point, we just become a line item on their bill of material. We do all that legwork, and then they can just order it online simply from a distributor or a local distributor.
I think that's a very good point that you bring up there, that they still need all the components that go into that box. So it
Yeah,
makes it easier to go through a distributor, one purchase order, and get everything they need, as opposed to, well, I
yeah,
need to order this here and order that. So that
yeah.
makes
We're
a lot of
we're
sense.
perfectly happy just being an item in someone's shopping cart. That's where we feel most comfortable because we know that you know nobody buys an enclosure without modifying it. Well, what are you modifying it for? You're modifying it for all those other components you need to buy. So simplify
Right.
the supply chain and just order from one place, and it makes it quite a bit easier. I know that
Yeah.
buyers like that. They don't want to have to order from a bunch of vendors.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. And have you seen any, firsthand experience with some strange or weird application that you've come across?
I think my favorite application, that's interesting. A long time ago, I had a tiny plastic enclosure that just had a couple of holes in it, and a lot of times we never really find out what the application is. To us, they just go out as a box with a couple holes in it, and maybe we wonder what it is. But it was a Geiger counter that just slipped on your belt. So you could be walking around a facility where there could be radioactivity, and I guess you just hope that that enclosure doesn't start beeping at you. So
Yes. Yeah.
that was interesting. We've had pretty cool applications for electric vehicle charging, even before it was, I wouldn't say that that's totally ubiquitous at this point, but it's a big market now. But we saw applications for this years ago when that was still really new. So it was pretty interesting to be on the cutting edge of that. And then going back a couple decades, enclosures for solar farms and things like that when they were going in. So you kind of get to see new emerging industries happen right in front of your eyes, and that's pretty satisfying. It makes it fun to come and work with those customers.
Tremendous. That's great. Tom, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
So now stay tuned, please, to learn a little bit more about customized enclosures.